Hey, it's Sean from Tested. Happy holidays. I am here to present my favorite things of 2019. To start, we'll do some books. We love books, and these are great. These are from Weta Workshop, one of our favorite places. And they put out two separate books that they then combined into a slipcase version. The first book is basically kind of like a history of Weta. And they started out, Weta Workshop did a lot of hands-on traditional kind of props. They've then went into the digital realm, and they now do a mix of both and kind of combine them seamlessly. What I love about this book in particular is that it goes way, way back. It goes to the beginning of Peter Jackson's career, where he was making schlocky horror films such as Brain Dead, also known as Dead Alive, and the first R-rated Muppet film, the Meet the Feebles. And it covers all of that stuff, which is stuff you do not normally see out of the Peter Jackson archive. So, and the other thing I like about this book is it's not overly text heavy. I have to admit, I have a lot of these type of coffee table books, and a lot of times I get them, I look at all the pretty pictures, I read tidbits here and there, but I never actually sit down and read the whole thing. This is much more approachable, and I think it gets right to the point and covers a lot of fascinating parts about the history of both the traditional Weta shop and the digital. They followed that up by another book, the digital book, which is very interesting how they did it. It basically will take certain scenes or parts of movies from Lord of the Rings and other various Weta productions, and we'll break them down into like what part was a matte painting, what part was digital, what part was animated, and how they did it. And it will just kind of like break all these little things down easy to digest in little blurbs. So once again, like a really accessible book that goes beyond just a pretty picture book. So these can be picked up at the Weta shop or even on Amazon. Next is another Weta Workshop item. They, delved into the prop world by selling them directly to us fans, and they've also branched out into doing like toys and books and other things. And one of the ones that they did last year was a District 9 CJ. Generally, I'm not a huge fan of vinyl toys, but I love this guy. He's a little cartoony, but the paint job is absolutely fantastic. The detailing is fantastic, and it just is really, really nicely done. I was super impressed by this, and is one of my favorite little action figures that I got this year. Also available directly through the Weta website. Now for some tools. We always try to do some tools for favorite things. The first one I'm going to talk about is this little guy. I believe I found this, I think they randomly sent this to us at Test to try out, and we ended up using this quite a lot. This is called the Glue Looper. It was another Kickstarter campaign for hobby tools, and the idea is that it has these little tiny loops on the end of this blade that lets you precisely control liquids. So that might be cement that you're trying to do some capillary action to get on a seam on a model. I use it a lot for putting thread locker on little tiny screws. It gives you a lot of control and it doesn't get everywhere. And they basically did this by photo etching this. This is a piece of photo etched metal that you basically break the size that you want off. They have different size loops for different projects. You fold back the tab, and then it will just go into any X-Acto handle. I've been using these a lot. The other nice thing about this is that if it gets clogged up, because these loops are tiny, you just take a lighter and burn it off, and it'll be open and ready to go and ready to use again. So the Glue Looper. Knipex. I know Adam has talked about Knipex quite often. They make fantastic tools out of Germany. I finally broke down and got these Knipex wire strippers this year. I've used many, many different automatic wire strippers, and most of them I've not been happy with. I used them for a little bit. They just didn't quite work like I wanted them to, and I just went back to the old-fashioned, regular squeeze and pull type strippers. This is the first automatic wire stripper that I have bought that I truly love and I've used all the time. They are not cheap, but in my opinion, if you're doing a lot of this type of work, these are worth the money. This particular one will strip from 7 to 32 gauge wire. It has an adjustable stop so that you can control how big the stripped area is. It has replaceable jaws for when they wear out. And then it basically pulls, closes and pulls and strips everything all in one go. And it works well enough that I found that I can usually do maybe 3 or 4 wires at a time, depending on how the gauge of the wire. The blades are replaceable as well. It has a really nice fine ratcheting depth adjustment. So if it's cutting into the wire too much or not enough, this is easy to adjust versus the other ones that I've used where you have to get a screwdriver out and set a clamp, and it just doesn't work as well. And then it even has a nice heavy-duty cutter on the top here to actually cut the wire itself. So the Knipex automatic wire cutters, highly recommended. Finally, one of my favorite things, this is stroking my own ego, but this is something that I made this year, and it is one of my favorite things. I've heard Adam often talk about the project that he is currently working on. He will sometimes take a piece of it or the whole thing home, and he'll put it on his bedside table so he can lay in bed and look at it longingly. And I have done this with this, not in the bedroom, but it's definitely on my desk every day. For those of you who don't recognize it, this is the Keymaster helmet from Ghostbusters 1. Basically, they put this on Louis Tully, Rick Moranis' character, to basically reveal that inside he's Vinz Clortho, the Keymaster of Gozer, and a demon dog underneath his human guise. This thing is such a fantastic prop. It is made from an old colander, which oddly enough, is also in Dana's kitchen. Keep an eye out for it. So I had to track down the right colander. It has a lot of different components they use throughout the Ghostbusters movies, such as these old resistors and particular connectors and wiring. The trick with this guy was it has all of these what look to be ceramic electrical insulators, these standoffs that are all around it. And by complete dumb luck, I think I found the short ones that they used on the colander. It looked right to me. I found enough to do mine, and then I 3D modeled and replicated them to do more of them. Other ones I just 3D modeled myself to look so it looked right to me, and printed those out as well. We have nylon standoffs similar to what they would use in like a computer case, and then lots and lots and lots of wire. We have a computer ribbon on the back. And then the rest was just, I had to find the right gauge wire, and I used the old dowel and a drill to coil all of this myself and then stretch it out to the right sizing. But this was like days and days and days of staring at high definition screen grabs to try to figure out the placing and where everything went on this. And like a lot of props, there's a lot of places you never get a really good look at the top or the back or the left side. So you kind of, was left to my own devices somewhat. The original chin strap was from Athletic Gear. It was a leather strap with a rubber elastic strap on it. Impossible to find. You can't find these anymore. So I found an equivalent, and our friend Kate Sabaker did some vinyl cutting for the logo on that, and it just turned out great. I did the full costume. My wife was the gatekeeper, and this is just such an oddball prop that I am happy to have in my collection, and I had a lot of fun building it. So those are my favorite things. We would love to hear what your favorite things are, or if you have better alternatives to some of these tools or whatnot, leave those comments and we'll get back to you, and have a great holiday.